Welcome to the Managing the Smart Mind podcast with your host, Coach Kramer. This is episode 90, Building a Culture of Inclusivity with Katherine McCord. Hello, smart humans and leaders. Welcome to this gem-packed episode with fast-brained human, HR expert, wolf rescuer, and so many other things, Katherine McCord. If you are dying to learn how you can build a more inclusive culture as a leader or manager, or how to manage your leaders or managers to do so, you definitely want to start taking notes on this one. Now, Katherine, in addition to being fast-brained and interested in many things, like probably all of you do, has multiple physical and neurodiversities. She has 6 invisible disabilities, ranging from MCAS and seizures to bipolar and CCD. And I love the way she looks at this. She says, I am successful with my diagnoses, not in spite of them. Yeah, let that sink in, right? So good. So she began rescuing animals very early on, and as an adult became the proud foster mum of wolves, exotic animals. She still has lots of animals, not sure there's still wolves involved. She currently lives in Florida in the US and runs a company called Titan Management. And the reason she founded this is to shake up HR and recruiting. And we'll be talking a lot about that on the podcast. She also hosts 2 shows, Career Launch Live and Supermania Show. And she is the COO and board member of the International Neurodiversity and Nonlinear Group, the Octopus Movement. Now, regular listeners know exactly what this is because you'll remember an earlier interview with the founder, Berry Knoppert. Now, people, operations, and inclusion have become her passions, and she has dedicated her life to innovating and growing them, and I would like to say advocating for them like crazy. Her missions are integrity, inclusion, and innovation, and she travels the globe speaking and teaching about them. Listen in to this episode where there are so many takeaways, so many easy to implement ideas to create a much more inclusive environment for all the people with all the diversities. Enjoy. We're just saying, this is pretty fun. This is pretty good.
This is perfect.
Yes. So I warned you ahead of time, like about my new card drawing game system, and you were willing to play. So let's go. Here's card number 1. What is your biggest frustration?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you have to pick one.
Dumb people. no, immovable people. Like that is my number 1 frustration, are people who refuse to grow and who refuse to be flexible. It makes no sense to me. It is counterproductive. It causes the biggest pains that we have in this world. And because really, if you think about it, like everything with inclusion, all that would be fixed if people would just be flexible and listen and respond to curiosity, not ego. So that is my biggest frustration.
What do you do when you encounter those rock type people?
Oh gosh. You know what? If I can, I try to have the discussion, because sometimes people will come across that way, but they're actually not. And if they just are given an opportunity to really ask questions and get curious and all that, and kind of, expose that basic human need, then they'll do really well. And so I give people an opportunity. If then it still doesn't work, then I either figure out a way to work with them in a project in which I absolutely must work with them, or I just get away from them. Right. I mean, honestly, I fired clients for that. It's just like, you're just, there's no point to this. Just bye. There's just no point to you. Yeah. So sometimes you have to do that, right? Just fire the frustration.
I mean, let's talk about firing clients. I think that's a great topic.
Yeah. Right.
No, but seriously, sometimes you have to fire clients because it's better for them as well as better for you. Right.
Yes,
so how do you know when it's time to fire a client?
When you hit an impasse. And here's And here's what I tell people, customer service is not what people think it is.
Mm.
People seem to be under the misnomer that customer service means that you do everything your customer wants or that the customer just gets their way. No, especially not especially not in my line of work, because sometimes
Yeah.
that's actually doing harm to other people, right? So
Yes,
because I work in people operations, so they could be doing something that's actually harmful, so no, they don't get to have their way. So
exactly.
we so what I do is, I like I said, I try to work through it, but when you hit that impasse, you feel it because
Mm.
you realize that there's no way forward. There's
Mm.
just kind of that moment of ugh, like where you just kind of drop in your energy. And when I feel that drop, I'm like, okay, that was it. That was the wall. That means that we can't go any further. That was all the things. And I've gone down my checklist of trying all the things, right? Now there's just nothing to be done. And so now we let it go. The other thing is if you find an ethical difference
Of course.
between you and
Yeah.
your clients,
If there's no
fire them.
value alignment, there's
Yeah,
a massive
right
problem.
there.
Yeah.
Fire them. If somehow you missed it in the discovery calls, which can happen, it
Yep.
can, you can think that there's alignment and, all that. But, if you find that, get rid of them immediately, right then and there, because nothing good comes of that.
Yeah. 100%. And just going back to what you said before, I don't know if you know, I've just been on the most epic tour at Lego, right? Like the 3-day inside Lego tour.
Oh, I'm so
And
jealous.
it was insane. I'm going to talk about it on the podcast at length, but
Good.
sneak preview. One of the things they shared with us in their many amazing presentations is what they do when they onboard their employees. One thing they really emphasize is like, yes, our number one value is the customer happiness, and also our number one value is employee happiness, and they're equally important. I know,
Yes.
right? This,
It should
yes,
that should just be how it is, but it's
yes.
somehow not,
It's sad, right? This actually gave me goosebumps because I was like,
Yeah.
yes, they get it. And then I was like, but how sad
It's
is it
not.
that this is like so
Like, why
special?
is this shocking? Yeah, why is this
Yes.
special? This should just be life. But
Yeah.
it's so true. And I think a lot of companies think that they have that.
Yeah.
I've started noticing that a lot of companies think that they prioritize their people, but the second that something comes to their attention and they hear, oh, this doesn't work for me, they go, yeah, well, it works for everybody else, so we're just going to keep doing
Yeah.
it. That's not it. Nope. No, no, no.
Exactly.
Or the bottom line comes into question, which by the way, I've never seen a situation in my years of doing this. You're talking about a decade plus of doing this. I have not once seen a situation in which taking care of your employees would have broken the company or would have
Right.
in any major way affected the bottom line.
Yeah, cause you to go
Not
bankrupt,
once.
etc.
Yeah,
Which is
none of
beautiful
that.
because like my next card is trust.
Perfect.
Right? So you have to trust as a business. But tell me a little bit more about how trust shows up in your work and how you work with clients and
It's
businesses.
trust is everything when you're
Mm.
in people work. If the people don't trust you, and this is actually where a lot of companies fall apart. If there's no trust and if there is no psychological safety, which for anyone who doesn't quite know what that means, it just means that people have the ability to speak up, maybe even dissent, to ask questions without fear of reprisal. All that means. That's all it means. Um,
You're saying that's
without
all that means.
those,
That's pretty massive, right? Like
it is massive, but I just mean it. People think it's
it's
way
a
more
simple
complex.
concept, but it's
Yeah,
so
it's
hard to create.
it can be if you don't know how to do it, if you're confused about what it actually is,
Mm.
then it's hard. Once you know what it is, it's not hard. So we just need to be teaching leaders this at the get-go. um but it's trust is everything. If you don't have that, your company is broken. If your customers don't trust you, or if your employees don't trust you, or God forbid both,
Yeah.
you're in a downward spiral. So you need to be able to build that up, and the easiest way to do that is to have open communication, truly, the psychological safety, to just truly steer into that, listen to people, and applying feedback. That's what people miss. Like, oh, we got all this feedback, yay, we're doing so good. No, you have to apply the feedback, because when you do, then even people who didn't send, the feedback that something needed to change will still see that you care enough to pivot when your people tell you that there needs to be a pivot.
Mm.
And that builds huge trust. I had that in a team of mine. I very first saw this very firsthand when I had one team member that said, hey, this really isn't working for me. I need help. I need to figure out a different way to do this. And so I pivoted what we were doing and I opened up the door so that some people could still do it this way, some people could do it that way. We found a way to make it work. And what was interesting was not so much the response and gratitude from that person, but the rest of the team coming to me and going, we think this is great. Thank you so much. And then, what started happening? They started speaking up more. They started trusting me with more information. And when something was going wrong and they were feeling scared or they were feeling like there was a better way to do something, they would just come up and tell me about it. And so what I tell people is very publicly respond to this feedback and thank the person who gave it to you. Thank the person who said, this could be better.
Yeah. I
And
think
it
actually this
goes
is a great example of also what happens when people ask for accommodations, right? And are granted
yes.
accommodations. You want to speak to that?
Yes. Oh God, yeah. Well, first of all, I am a huge supporter of the idea of removing the accommodation process as it exists and just making accommodation standard options with like a fill in the blank. So
It's like buying a car and you sort of hit
yeah,
the
like here's
checklist
the
like
things I just need.
I
Yeah,
want a
here's
special radio, I want like
here's the
better
features.
seats.
Yeah. That's it. That's what it is. And it doesn't ultimately cost the company more money. And I have all the data if anybody
Okay,
wants,
hang
they
on. I'm
can
going to hit
contact me
pause
on
on
this.
that. Right? Like, because I know you have all the data, but we need to like re-emphasize
No, that's
this,
what I'm saying.
right? Because people are
It
going to say,
does
"What? No,
not.
no, it's expensive. People will
No,
want
it's
expensive
not.
headphones."
No, it's not. So here's very briefly, I'm going to
Yeah,
give the rundown
sure.
because you're right. I do need to elaborate a little bit more than that, right? So first of all, the Department of Labor, the U.S. Department of Labor, recently did a study that showed that 56% of accommodations do not cost any money at all or cost the
Huh.
exact same as what you're going to spend anyway, right? Then an additional something like 15 to 20% somewhere in there cost about $5 to $10. So very, very cheap. But also what happens is when a person needs something more expensive over here, they might want something less expensive over here. So it will also balance out.
Yeah.
Then you have the consideration of them calling out, retention, all of this. When you filter
Yeah,
all of
sure.
this in, you actually save money by just building in the accommodations. And I want to say,
Okay,
I want to
say it
give a
louder for
shout
the
out.
people at the back. You save
Build
money.
in your accommodations because it saves you money.
Thank you.
It's so true. It's so true. And it's funny. And then your people are happier, they're more productive, they're healthier, they're at work more. Then ultimately your customers are happier, and then you make more money. So it's this wonderful little trickle of things. And one company that's rocking it. If anybody wants to just go and see what this actually looks like, go to Inclusively is the name of it, and it's
Huh.
a kind of a job search, you know, place. But you can fill out a profile, and then you can go in, and it asks all these different accommodations, and then there's a fill in the blank,
Oh my
and
God.
it's
Just
very
already in a recruitment process.
yeah, like
Genius.
inclusively. And I don't. I don't know if it's because they heard me speak, but I do know for a fact that some other people were at one of my speeches. And so I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm going to take credit for that, but I love that they're doing it either freaking way. I think it's phenomenal. Um, they are rocking it. They what it is you give the suggestions. Here's some things that we just offer standard. Here's just some things that we thought of, but also here's some where you can fill in the blanks. And it removes the stress. It shows inclusion. People can yak all they want to, and people are like, "Yeah, right. You're still going to discriminate against me. You're still going to do, whatever."
Yeah.
Then you have the problem too that a lot of people don't know how to take care of themselves
Yeah.
because they've not been taught to. They've
Yeah.
not been told that that's okay. So they
It
don't
doesn't
know.
feel
But then
safe, basically.
no, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, but when you show them that it is and you give them suggestions, then it's like, oh, okay, cool. Now, if it is something expensive, if it is something complicated, still simplify the process, please. This is nonsense of multiple steps and weeks and months of back and forth. No, very simple process. Just, one sheet that they need to fill out. And you don't really stop being nosy too. Let's just throw that out there. You don't really need to know the why outside of the fact that it's a medical issue, right? And just a very broad scope why. You don't need the specifics of this person's diagnosis. That's not your business. All you need to know is that, yes, they do factually need it to work more effectively, and so on and so forth. That's it. That's all you need to know. So stop being nosy also, because it's so weird. So weird to be that
And you
nosy.
mean being nosy as wanting the entire medical dossier and
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, that's ridiculous. It's perfectly reasonable if something is going to be expensive to get a doctor's note saying, yes, this is actually required because of a medical diagnosis. That is perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
But what is, and to also then counter, so let's say they're asking for a particular brand. Well, if you find the exact same thing that accomplishes the exact same thing, but it's less expensive, that's reasonable. That's part of the reasonable part of reasonable accommodation. So you have every right for that. But let's stop being nosy and being like, so tell me everything about your diagnosis so that I can understand why. No.
Yeah, that's personal.
That is not your business. Yeah. Not your business.
Love that. Okay, so my next card is presence.
Oh.
So I would love to talk about presence, I think, as probably as a leader, as a manager, like what is important with regards to presence, do you think? And where do people sort of trip up?
Presence. I like that one. A long time ago. So my
In a
husband and
land
I,
far, far away.
in a land far, far away. Actually, it kind of is now. I'm in Florida, and this was in Texas. Yeah, it's kind of far, far away. So I had the privilege of multiple times in my career working alongside my husband. We have been coworkers. I've been his boss. He's been my boss.
Amazing.
Every capacity you can think of. Yeah. And we're one of those rare couples that just thrives at that.
I was gonna say, and you're still together.
Yeah, and actually it strengthened our relationship. Just the way that we are as unique humans, that actually worked well for us. So he is one of the most brilliant managers that I've ever had the privilege to watch. He's also been a client, worked for a client of mine, so we worked in that capacity too. And he taught me the importance of being what he called in the dirt with your people, right? So getting in there and working with them. And I think that's what a lot of managers miss. They're very present. They'll come by, they'll say hi, like physically speaking. They'll say hi. They'll be visible, right? But visible is not the same thing as presence.
Yes,
really. Presence is, I am sitting with you. I am here. I am, experiencing this, with you, whether it's in the same way or not. I am experiencing this thing with you. And that's what I think a lot of leaders miss, is the presence of, I am here with you right now. And that's the thing. And so as people are going through different things, it's important that you're helping with some of the work. Managers, in terms of, I'm not talking about executive leadership, but hands-on managers need to always be still doing the work. At least 5 to 10% of your time should still be doing the work of your people, so that you're staying in that same world with them, and so that you understand what's going on with them. You cannot truly lead the humans in a very direct way if you're not also doing the work, right? And I have a funny story on that though. So a while back, I had forgotten this, right? I was working for a large company. I had kind of forgotten this lesson because I was, I had the excuse of I was so busy doing these other things, right? But I forgot the importance of it. And so sure enough, some of my people, I called them out on something that they had stopped doing, that they had been doing, which was responding to candidates in a timely manner. That's a bugaboo of mine. You got to do it. Got to respond to them within 24 hours.
Basic human decency.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they had trailed off. Right. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. And this is the response that I got. Well, you're over here in your office doing manager stuff. You don't know what it's like for us. And in my mind, I thought, you know what? Ultimately, they're calling me out of my own BS. So, okay. So I made a deal with them and I said, okay, so I'm going to do my job and yours, work no more than 42 hours this week. So this is a Monday. No more than 42 hours this week. All of my candidates will have this response. And if I have not submitted as many, if I've not met the submittal, base, and if I have not responded, then you win. And I will stop bothering you about this. I will buy whoever gets more submittals than me lunch, so on and so forth. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you get if you win? I said, you buy me lunch. And then you do what I just said because I know you know how to do it and I know that you can.
Yeah.
And they said, okay. At the end of the week, I really enjoyed my double cheeseburger, my chocolate because I proved that I could still do it. But that reminded me that I needed to be in the trenches, right?
Yeah.
That I needed to be with them and still participating. So I made a point from then on to still take on one or two roles for myself, not the full load that was made for a crazy week for me, but to still keep one or two so that they understood that I was still right there with them. And I think that's right. So there you go. That's my story about being
I
present.
think even for executive management, actually, and I happen to also be married
Yeah.
to an amazing human being who leads the team, and he leads 70 people, so he can't be doing all the things they're doing.
Well, right.
Right. But he still codes in his spare time. Right. So
Yes.
he has his
And that
project.
works too.
Right. So he
Yes.
can talk code with the people who are coding, and that,
Yes.
he gets him so much respect, but also gives him so much understanding of what's actually going on.
100%.
Right?
And so yes, so executives, that was beautiful lead in, because I was saying executives still need to do it, but it just will be to a little bit lesser extent because they have a different job, right? It's a different job.
Right?
But stay in the trenches. Be
100%.
present.
Love it. Okay, my next card. Money.
Yay, money.
Money. Do we need it? Do we want it? What about it? How do we get more?
Sadly, yes, we do need it. I dream of a day when Seth MacFarlane's manifestation of what our universe should be, as presented in his show, The Orville, will one day come to pass, where your contribution is your money.
Yeah.
That would just be
that
beautiful.
Is your currency.
I would be ecstatic if that's how that worked. And people are like, well, ultimately, that's what it is. No, because there are things that contribute very highly that pay very low.
For
like
people
teaching,
who are not watching the video,
right?
I just did the face palm thing. Like people, that is
no,
not
it's
ultimately
not the same
how it currently works.
No, that is not it at all.
No.
But that is my ultimate dream. But right now, our world is that we do need money, right?
Yep.
We do need currency. So how to get more of it? Treat your people better, first of all. And then start being flexible. I've seen so many companies just sink over the years because they would just be so bullheaded that things had to be done this way. The product should be this, and they didn't stop. Or they might even innovate, but not in a way that anybody ever asked for, needed, or wanted, right? Like just this weird thing that they decided to do. And so it just doesn't work. It doesn't. You have to listen, get feedback, again, respond to that feedback. Interesting how this just keeps circling back, but in everything
right?
in
We
life,
have a theme, I think.
we have a theme, listen to feedback. It's the same thing in relationships, right? Everything.
Yes.
Listen to feedback, accept the feedback, pivot with the feedback, be flexible. And that's it. If you want to earn more money, be flexible. I tell people all the time, the most money I've ever made has come with flexibility. And every time my income increases, it's because I just roll with it. And like, you know what? This looks like it's going well. I'm going to steer into that and I'm going to get more money. Like that's, and it just works out. It just works out. So pivot constantly. And another one, and this does surprise people when I, being from a recruiting background, when I advocate for this, job hop.
Oh,
don't
good.
just I like that you like that. Just don't just stay at one job because what happens is you get in a rut.
Yep.
And then you start to get stuck. And I don't mean you have to necessarily hop companies. Okay, you can hop jobs within the same company.
Yes,
that's
100%.
the thing, right? Yeah. So you could be flexible and so you can stick with your company and still, learn and change and do things and all that kind of stuff. But be flexible. That just brings so much growth. And if that's not who you are as a person, fine, great, whatever. But if you're trying to pursue more money and more growth, that's what you do. Job hop.
And I think most of the people listening to the podcast are going to get bored very quickly if they stay
Yeah.
in the same position, right? So I think
Yeah.
it's relevant to
Oh,
all of
yeah.
them. How do you keep it interesting? And it's good to hear this perspective. So job hopping isn't necessarily bad because I think
No.
insanely people still have this belief that
Yes.
it makes you somehow unreliable or it's
Yeah. No.
bad, it looks
You know
bad.
what makes you
So we have
reliable? Being reliable while you're at the job. Like, okay, don't be flaky while you're at the job.
yes,
That's what makes you reliable. Like that's it. I have hired people who had 6 to 9 month stints at each previous job, which is a little low. I do want to say
that is low.
that is pretty low. That is lower than what I'm talking about. But once I got them in the door, they were spectacular.
So how do you
And
hire? How do you know
how
this?
do how do I hire?
Yeah.
So actually, some of it's instinct. I have a natural ability to truly read people and even see past, the things that they're trying to hide and all of that. That is a gift. So in a way, it's hard for me to teach other people how to hire like me because some of
Right.
it's just completely natural, and you either have that or you don't.
Yeah.
So there is that element, but the things that I do to set that up for success and the things that I've taught other people to do. Number one, stop hiring for years of experience. That's the most utterly
Amen.
ridiculous marker that is out there right now. What you're looking for is expertise in something. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be exactly what you're hiring for in most cases. In most cases, there are exceptions to that. But
And
in most
flexibility, right?
and flexibility, there it is. That's the thing. But that's it. So stop hiring for that. And don't create candidate profiles. So people do this thing, and sometimes it's done separately, sometimes it's done inside of the job description, where they create the ideal candidate profile. Mm-mm. That's counterproductive. That's completely counterproductive. What you've just done is told your brain this is the only correct answer. If it's
Yeah.
not like this isn't. And people go, no, I'll be flexible. No, you won't. You think you will, but your brain has already been told what the correct answer is.
Exactly.
So
You
in
have this picture in your mind, and anything else is
yeah,
going to fall short, and your brain's going to be like, nah, I don't know.
yeah.
No.
And that's where you get the people that also drag on. And maybe eventually they do open up their mind to something else, but it just takes way too long. And then you ultimately lose the candidate anyway because they took forever to wrap their little minds around it. So instead of that, focus on solving the problem. Like, this is the problem that I need solved. Who can do that?
Yeah.
And just however that looks, because sometimes it will come from the craziest background that
Yes.
you can possibly imagine, right? Like, it just, who would have thought that a person with, strong restaurant experience, who'd worked for a sports travel company, who had also run a doggy daycare, and then had
I
had
love
worked in
this person
collections,
already.
helped people get out of debt, all of that, would become an international speaker and people operations consultant and become a very public figure for inclusion in HR. That person is me. I
Right?
mean, it's just, who would have thunk it, right? Like,
Mad.
this person with this crazy ass background. And yes, I did briefly work for a recruiting company for exactly 1 year
Yeah.
before breaking into what I do. And the HR part came from experience I had building what was essentially HR. That wasn't my title, but building out HR and other roles, handling it. That's where all of that came from.
Yeah.
And then, of course, a lot of reading and knowledge of laws and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's it. It's, I had my mother, who is a phenomenal HR professional, started off as an RN and just had a knack for it. So they moved her
Beautiful.
over into recruiting and moved her into HR, full on HR.
Yep.
And so, and she had no formal education for that. She had a formal education for being a nurse, but not for HR recruiting. So, just look for someone who has the talent and the skills already built up and who has seen similar problems. Again, doesn't need to be exact, that can take care of it for you. It's really that simple.
Yeah.
Look, it's a problem solving position, and I think that we forget that.
Do you know David Epstein's book, Range?
I've heard of it. I've not read
Okay,
it.
he actually speaks about this. Like people who are sort of interdisciplinary, who know many things, come up with the most crazy ass solutions and turn out to be insanely valuable. Whereas on paper, people would have said, "Well, I don't know, right? Is this the right person
Right?
for this job?"
Like what?
Yes, 100%, 100%. So good. Okay, which brings me to education.
Yay!
So I mean, we can talk about what's wrong with it. We can talk about how we can make it better. We can talk about neurodiversity in education. Like you take your pick.
Oh God.
So many
Okay. Well,
things.
first of all, since we were just talking about hiring, I'm
Hmm.
going to point out that formal education is rarely actually needed. Like, look, if you're going to be a lawyer
Yes.
or a
A
doctor,
doctor,
you
right?
need a formal education. Yeah, please, God, if you're a doctor, get a formal education. Uh, but outside of that, no, that's not a thing that's needed. It can be nice, but make sure that you're not focused on that because you can get that same knowledge with the internet. You could get
Yes.
that same, I learned all the legalities of HR from my mother and the internet.
Yeah.
Like that's how I got that education. So you don't need a degree for a lot of these things anymore. Um, and then
And
so let's
also,
talk
like,
about.
you don't need a degree and you don't need that crazy debt. Like if you're living in
Oh
the
my
US,
God.
right?
Yeah, I sat there and I had a client company who got students out of debt. Like that was their thing. And good Lord God, the amounts of debt that I would see, and with degrees that had no hope of ever paying that back.
Right? No, like
Like none.
neurosurgeon or something, whatever
Yeah,
that.
no, 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 no.
Yeah.
Like I literally, this is one of their clients had an art degree,
Hmm.
okay, and $110,000 in debt.
Wow.
How is that person ever going to pay that back?
Well,
What?
lots of lots
Who
of
lived in
paintings. I don't
that?
know. Yeah.
Who lived in that? Like in all sincerity, like what? Like that? No, that's just irresponsible lending, which is ultimately how they got the debt removed, by the
Yeah.
way. But it was, it's crazy, right? It's just crazy. The educational system is messed up. It really is. And people go, oh, it's so easy to say when you don't work in education. Yeah, well, I'm surrounded by educators and they all agree. So we're just going to go ahead and go with the
Yeah.
idea. Every single one of them, without fail. I have not met a single educator that's like, yay, our system, especially here in the
It's
States, is
amazing.
so great.
And it's the same here in
Yeah.
Holland. And I think the rest of Europe, like teachers are so frustrated. Like,
Yes.
students are frustrated. Everybody's pissed. And again,
Yeah.
if
And it's
you're
different
neurodivergent,
problems,
right,
right? Like,
then
yeah. Oh God. Yeah. God forbid you learn differently or you have a lot of energy,
yeah,
and what is this with making kids sit still?
I
What
know.
is that? Like what? How? That's not a natural thing. First of all, humans should not be sitting that
Yes.
still, period. Don't care
Yeah.
what age you are.
Yeah.
I mean, my
It's making us
80,
super sick.
right, exactly. My 89-year-old grandma swears to the fact, my Mimi swears to the fact that part of the reason she's so healthy is that she always stays in motion. And I completely agree with her.
Yeah.
She is 89 and she can run circles around me.
So
Like,
good.
she's glorious. She's absolutely fascinating. But this, making kids sit still, insisting that everybody learn the same way, that just doesn't make sense. Their mind doesn't work that way. And then, and this is going to sound like I'm blaming teachers, but I'm not. So let me
Sure.
finish the thought because I feel like, because I
It's
know
like
this is going
saying
to
the
come off
healthcare
really bad.
system sucks, but it's not actually the fault of the doctors, right? Like it's
Right. Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
system
So the
sucks.
the the teachers, though, what is happening, and I do somewhat hold them responsible, but not 100%, is that you're seeing a lot of burnout, but
Yeah.
then they're staying with it. So then they're grumpy, and then they're getting like, then the attitude shifts, and then they're not a good teacher anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, it's not their fault that the system sucks. And I love their passion for what they do, but I'm seeing a lot of burnout. I can't deal with this. Then the frustration grows. And so a lot of teachers are now catching that and they're leaving. And so now it's like, oh no, what are we going to do without teachers? Well, maybe treat them better. And
Yeah.
don't make their, first of all, why are teachers paying for supplies? That makes no sense. Second
That
of
is
all,
something I mean, for you
yeah,
be in
like,
perspective, you're just like, say what? Like, what?
like
I
what?
just
The first time you ever hear that, you're like, that can't be common. No,
so
all of them,
I'm guessing lots of
all of them.
people listening to the podcast have never heard of this concept. So please explain what's going
Yeah.
on.
Oh, yeah. So this is something I found out about a while back. Again, I'm
It is
surrounded by
crazy.
teachers, family, friends, actually colleagues of mine that work in education. And I was one of the people who really opened my eyes as to why this happened is Jerry Johnson, fascinating education consultant. She has a wonderful book, by the way, called Imagine That, that's full of funny stories about kids that she's, either taught or been the principal of over the years and the crazy things that their parents do. Great book. Check it out on Amazon. Um, but the reason that this happens is that they run out of budget, but then they also know that in public schools, parents can't afford it. And so then here are these teachers. If I want to teach effectively, I just have to pay for it, which is insane because you
It's
have what,
mental.
like 25 kids to a room or some nonsense like that. And so then for 25 kids, and assuming that you only have one class,
Yeah.
but when they're younger, maybe you're in high school and you get a new classroom, every, and then they're having to pay for this to be able to teach effectively. That's insane. So they have a salary, but then take out, 10 grand or so. And this is the number that I've been given by multiple people across our country and in Canada,
Wow.
that around 10 grand a year, 5 to 10 grand was the range. So 5 to 10 grand of your salary just gone to pay for something that should be being paid for uh, by the public education system. It's insane. So, and wouldn't that make you kind of resentful too? Like, wouldn't you kind of be like, well, great, now I can't pay my electric bill because I had to pay for these freaking school
I had to buy
supplies.
like pencils. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's nuts. Um, but this also leads back to, so I've known some teachers that tried for creative alternatives and were shot down because it wasn't as measurable. It wasn't this or that. Look, first of all,
Interesting.
standardized testing is dumb. Let's just put it out there. That is the word for standardized tests. They are dumb. We need to get rid of them. Some of the most
Okay, hang on.
intelligent
Hang on.
people.
What do we replace it with? Because I like this idea, but then people are going to say,
Okay.
okay, but so how
Okay.
do I know who I let into Harvard?
Right. Oh, all right. Well, first of all, first of all, um, let's start with, we don't need SATs and all that. Okay, look, if you want to get into a certain type of school, they can have their own tests you
Yeah,
take to get into that school. Okay, I'm talking about getting people out of high school,
right,
just
right.
the basic primary education.
Yes,
So if Harvard wants to have, or whoever wants to have
they get
their
to
own
have their
admission
test.
process, have at it.
Yeah,
Yay for you. But
yeah,
even so, presented in different ways, because some people are just really bad test takers. One of the
yes.
most intelligent people that I know, brilliant, taught himself to be an architectural engineer. Okay,
Oh
taught
my God.
himself,
Wow.
is wildly successful, leads huge projects all over the country for his company. Can't pass a test to save his life because it just, the anxiety behind it and just the way that the information is presented, it just doesn't work for his brain. Um,
And it's the same,
so
I think, reading comprehension, again, for a lot of smart people, the way it
yes,
is taught, I don't know if it's the same in the US, but here in Holland, reading comprehension is just the questions seem, if you have like a certain type of brain, the questions seem so ambiguous. And you're like, well, this could be true,
yeah,
but this could also be true.
right,
And this
yeah,
could be true. And by the 10 other things could also
like
be
you just
true.
go down the rabbit hole, right? I saw a beautiful response from a little kid at one point that was literally a whole page of answering what could have easily just been a one sentence response
Right, right,
because he
right.
went down the rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
But he was right, but and he comprehended it. So that's the other
Yes,
thing, is learning to shift what answers need to look like. It doesn't need
exactly.
to be, I you see all these funny answers that kids give on tests and such. And I'm like, you know what? If a kid gave me that answer, they would pass because they still
Yeah.
get the basic concept. They still get the concept, right? And they're showing that they're learning. They're just over here on this little spectrum.
And sometimes
I
they get bonus
also,
points for being sassy, right?
yeah, exactly, right. Which I love. I mean, sassy kids would
Same.
get so many bonus points for me.
Yeah.
Um, that's my little bias. I like sassy kids, but the grading, so the test, the way that you replace it is understanding concepts and whether somebody needs to verbally communicate that. So you could just look at somebody, maybe they like open-ended questions, and you could say, explain to me what you learned about the Civil War. Bam, open question, right? Or it could be, this person needs a more detailed account, and you could just say, okay, so what fact was this? What fact was it?
Exactly. In
And
which year did so and so do so and so?
Yeah, and you know what? Ultimately, years and stuff don't matter. That doesn't matter. What did you learn from this? What did you learn from this war? What do you understand about the history of this country as it pertains to that's that's the thing. But measured in different ways. If a kid, steer into success, and then it support kids going in a direction that makes sense for their brains. And yes, you still need to learn the other stuff too, but focus. Sure. Over here where it works for them. But then
build confidence, right? Instead of breaking people down.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Build that confidence up. Let them see that they can succeed exactly as they are. It works. Trust me, even with adult humans. But then the other piece of it is, just focusing, bringing it back to the learning and removing. So there in the US, I don't know if this is true in Holland or not, there's this really messed up system where the schools that succeed the most on these standardized tests get the most money.
Oh.
Well, here's the problem with that.
Yeah.
They don't need it. They're already doing fine.
So they keep scoring the best.
They keep doing better. And then these other schools, the teachers keep
never
not
get
being able
any
to
money.
afford supplies. Yeah. And it's messed up. So instead,
it's exactly the opposite of what you would want, right? You want to give money.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense. So it should just be, if your population is between this and this as a school, right? As a school, this is how much money you get.
Yeah, this is what you need to do your job. Basically, this is your budget.
This is what you need. Yeah, with all the supplies, no teachers having to pay for anything, all of this is what you get. And that would work out so much better. So that's the other thing in education that's super broken, is that the way the budget is distributed is just jacked up. Just, at least again, I don't know about in other countries, but here in the States, it's just really backward. It just doesn't make sense.
I just want to go back to the tests quickly and the adults. What are your thoughts on testing adults, right, for jobs?
Oh, God. Okay. So
because this is also where so many neurodivergent people, right?
You're opening up a soapbox.
So good. No.
So here we go. I have done extensive work in this, including going specifically to conventions and playing with every test out there that I can find.
Oh, love it. Of course you would.
And taking them. Yeah, because that's how my little octopus neurodiverse brain works. I have reached out to companies outside the US and have asked them to send me a link so that I can test out their stuff. Number one, I'm just going to put this out there. Every single personality test out there is really just an "are you dumb" test, because they're so obvious. And I'm talking about just the personality ones, not skill-based, right?
Yeah.
And not how do you learn, not those tests. The strictly personality. It is very obvious what answer. So you
need to get right to end up in a bucket. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So it's either the "are you dumb?" It's basically an "are you dumb" test for most people. Unfortunately, what it turns into for people with neurodiverse brains, because there are whole populations that just lying is just not natural to them. So they'll actually pick. They will actually.
I cannot lie.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I know so many people that way. And so they'll be honest.
Yes. To our detriment.
So then you're punishing honesty, because the company is looking for this like super pro company, not necessarily even the most, integrity filled answer or anything like that.
No, they just want you to be like, flexible, sociable, team player, right?
Or the other thing that happens in the neurodiverse community is that there are more than one answer that applies. And so they just break and they just get stuck and they're only allowed to pick one. Yeah. And they're only allowed to pick one. And I don't even like that. Like that, I can choose, but I'm just like, man,
it makes me mad.
Yeah. Because really these two things should be chosen. It's just not the best way to do it. Yes. So number one, they're not effective. They're just not for anybody ever, because you're encouraging lying in the group that will lie, then you're then you're just going to get pure honesty out of the other ones, but you're also going to punish them for that. Or you're going to say,
Yeah,
oh, that
because they're
wasn't
going
the
to be
best answer.
get a non-desirable profile.
Right.
Basically.
Well, because here's the thing. They'll do something. You're asking them for the best answer. Well, did you ask them why that was the best answer?
Yeah.
Did you ask for clarification, because maybe their answer actually is the best and you have it wrong? So
yeah.
it just doesn't work. They're broken by nature. They're horribly uninclusive. I mean, even from just the way the questions are asked, they're horribly uninclusive.
There's massive bias. Same with the IQ, right? There's just
massive. Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah. Now, however, there are wonderful tests that once you are onboarded, or being onboarded, you sign the offer letter, all of this. Once that happens, there are wonderful tests to help you learn how to best communicate with your new team member and how to best teach your new team member. There are wonderful tests out there.
I love DISC for that, right? It's such a great way to learn about communication, preference, etc.
Yes.
As long, again, because even with DISC, people abuse it and say, oh, he's so red, or they're so blue, they're impossible, right?
Don't abuse it. Just take it at face value. Just learn a little bit. And there are a few others out there. The names are eluding me right now. But
if they come back to you, I can put them in the show notes.
Yeah, right. So there
that's what show notes are for.
Circle back. I'll circle back. It really, but those tests can be wonderful. They can be absolutely wonderful. And I'm all for, and figuring out people's goals and what drives them. That's another great one.
Yeah.
Because when you understand what motivates people, you can teach them, you can work with them best, you'll help them succeed and be excited about their job. Super pro, all of that testing. And I have run into some that are about as unbiased as you can get. Mm-hmm. they're really trying. You can tell that they're trying, and they take feedback. There's one in particular that I actually did a consulting session with, and they took that feedback, man, and they started implementing it. And I was like, thank you.
That is amazing.
Flexibility, flexibility. So I will.
I love this, by the way. This is totally going to be the title of this interview.
Flexibility.
The secret to life, the universe, and everything.
And everything. I will get you the names of all of these cool. And links to everything to you, by the way. So that anybody
should you even evaluate when you hire?
No.
Right.
Okay. No. You just
some people might be in shock now, right?
Yeah, no, just talk to the human. Figure out, can they do the job? Figure out, are they the right ad, not fit for your company? And let me
say that again. I feel that
ad, not fit. And not just culturally, but even with their talents. What you're looking for is an ad. So for instance, there is not a higher performer than me. It's never existed. Any company I've worked for, been at the top every single time. It is what it is. But you don't want a whole bunch of me. Like, that sounds counterintuitive, right? Well, you're super high productive.
I'd be horrified to be in a team of me's, right?
Oh God, same. I don't want to work with a team of me's. That would be terrible. You need, and I'll give a great example. When I was in debt settlement, I was at the top, but there were certain clients I just could not work with. There was too big of a clash, and I was too young to have learned how to better deal with that. There was, and I just wasn't the right fit for certain people, right? So we needed other personalities, right? And so I had this beautiful, harmonious relationship with the person who trained me. He was another just very influential person in my growth, both as a human and as a professional. And he was not good at keeping his tasks current. He was always behind in his work, always. But he was really good with difficult humans and with getting them to calm down and to hear him out and that kind of thing. So what we did was we switched. He would take on the client that I just couldn't stand for whatever reason, and I would keep him current. And we had this beautiful, harmonious ad. I was an ad to what was already there.
Yeah.
It worked beautifully. We got another woman who came in who was the most gentle, like mom energy, Mother Earth person, and she was very lovely for a certain type of clientele. But she had to hand off certain clients to other people who needed more of the kick in the butt, yes. That kind of approach. again, an ad, right? So that's what you're looking for, is to add to your team, not to just keep duplicating the same old, same old. I hear
I'm
companies
thinking this might actually be a great perspective on relationships as well.
that too.
Anybody
Yes.
who's dating.
I don't, God, yeah. People, I get asked all the time, oh, you're almost at 20 years. How do you do that? We complement each other. He adds to my life. I add to his life. That's how that works.
Yes.
There are many areas in which we are vastly different. Of course, there are similar areas as well, but we add to each other's lives, and that's the thing. You can. It works better when there's an addition to it. Same thing with sports teams, right?
Yes.
Like people always talk about, for instance, I love hockey, so they always talk about Wayne Gretzky, but they don't talk about the guys that kept
Okay,
him
help me
safe.
here. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. First of all, is this field hockey or ice hockey?
Ice hockey. Sorry.
Okay.
So yes, so in ice
Sorry.
hockey, so Wayne Gretzky is like indisputably, they call him the great one. Like,
Right,
that'll
right,
give
right.
you a good,
He's like a
like,
god.
yeah.
Yes.
But then they don't talk about guys like Marty McSorley, and folks like that stepped up and kept all these goal scorers safe. They call them the guardians of the ice. In fact, there's even a
Right.
wonderful special about that. And the mentality that it's actually a protector mentality, not a bully mentality that goes behind that. And they don't talk about those people, but they're the ads. The Oilers would not have won all these championships, and vice versa. It's and there's been other people like Sidney Crosby on the Penguins. He's wonderfully talented, but he's not very well protected. So now he's had a lot of injuries. But even so, if they didn't have the defensive people taking care of him and filling in these other holes that are not his skill set, they would not have won multiple Stanley Cups. That's just how it works. Tom
Yes.
Brady, if you like American football, same kind of thing. It's he wouldn't be him without the supporting characters. And so you need those ads.
Yeah.
Not everybody needs to be your big star. Not everybody needs to be the big flashy shiny thing, right? Sometimes you need the really awesome supporting character, because they're that piece that's going to make it all come together.
100%.
And
Like,
now you're going to win the championships.
but especially with startups and with visionaries, right? Like, we
Yeah.
need those solid people who actually keep us
Yes.
sort of on the straight and narrow.
Yes.
Make sure
Keep your
shit gets done.
grounded. God, I need that, because I get going so fast, and it's always good to have that reminder of, nope, come back here and work on this little thing. Nope, come back here and work
Yep.
on this little
It's like
thing.
this
Come
hook,
back, lady.
right? Like,
Come back over here. Yeah.
yank back.
And I will tell you, I I used to, for years, I would have what I called my nice buddies that reminded me to stop and be nice, because I will get going
Yeah.
and it's not that I'm rude. I'm never rude. I'm too Southern. I'm too much of a Southern belle for that, to be rude. But I will forget to actually be kind and warm.
Yeah.
And warm isn't really a natural state of being for me, as it comes to most humans. With my partner, with my little sister, that's about as, and with all my foster animals, that's where the warmth goes. But that's not really my natural state. So I used to have the people that would remind me to stop, let out the warm and fuzzies,
Mm,
be cute, and now I don't really need that. Now I've kind of got the rhythm,
right.
and I know how to do it for myself. But for many years, uh, I would say about the first decade or more of my working life, I had to have my fuzzy buddy, my warm and
I
fuzzy
love
buddy,
this
my nice
idea. I
buddy.
think a lot of people need that, a fuzzy buddy, because we can
Yeah,
be so functionally oriented, right? Like, this is what needs to
yeah,
get done. Why isn't it been done already? Right? Come on, guys.
right.
Seriously. Like, what, you have human emotions? Stop it.
Yeah, stop having needs. Ah, you know.
Seriously.
So
Boring.
yeah, and I'll
Predictable.
get in it, and I'll jump in and I'll help people, and all of that part comes naturally. But
Yeah.
the warm and fuzzies do not.
Yeah.
So I was like, I needed that person that would be like, like, don't forget to go in there and rah rah and say the nice thing and do the thing.
Yeah.
I had an assistant for a while, and I thought, and he did this all on his own, by the way. I thought this was so genius. He would, first of all, he organized my desk for me and had my like tea or coffee. And somehow he always knew what mood I was in before I got there. It was
That
brilliant.
is insane.
And he would, yeah, and he would like set out exactly what I was like wanting on my desk by the time I got there. But also, the most extraordinary part to me was what he called my compliment list. And he would go through and he would say, these are the humans that have done something extraordinary. He was my assistant manager too. So he was both
So
like
he knew all the
my assistant
things.
and the assistant. Yeah. And he would say, these are the humans who I think, really need a compliment right now or deserve one. This is going on. And then there'd be suggestions as to some other things that we could do. And he kind of so because that was just on my desk first thing, the first thing I did every day was go out and do the warm and fuzzies, right?
So good.
And so I thought, every leader should be doing that. And so I kind of started carrying that over. Um, he was excitingly promoted out of my department. This was at my last W-2 job, promoted out of my department into a leadership role elsewhere, making way more money. I was super stoked about it. And I kind of just carried that with me, elsewhere of start the day with the warm and fuzzies and the encouraging, and all that.
And
But
just
it's
celebrating
again,
your people.
and celebrating your people. Yeah. I mean, I'm good at like, oh, you hit your numbers, but what about the other stuff?
Yeah.
What about the person who's always helping the other team members? The person who, was really struggling, but now they're doing so great, and just remembering to very publicly
Yes.
say, you are rocking and I really appreciate you. And I had my own way of doing that, but I thought I liked his way better because it kind of brought a little bit more emotion to it.
Yeah.
And so I liked it. Yeah. So have your fuzzy buddy, just have somebody that reminds you, or if you're all fuzz, go the other way with it.
Yes. Have your
Get the
KPI
person that,
buddy. Right.
yeah, have your person go, no, you're getting off task. Get back over here.
Yeah.
Come on. And I've been that for other people. I've been
Yeah.
the nope, don't derail. Get
Look at
back
the
over here.
numbers.
Yeah, come back over here. Come on.
So good. And this is just what I love about this is, yeah, we all like have our preferences, again, the way we're
Yeah.
wired, and we're never perfect. We never have
No,
everything, right? We're
no.
never able to do all the things. We always need other people.
Yes, we're symbiotic beings. We
Yes.
need other. There is no, I hate the phrase self-made man or woman, whatever the case
Yeah.
is. I hate it
That's
because there's no
bullshit.
such thing. It's complete bullshit.
Yeah.
There is no such thing. Everybody had help from somebody, had encouragement. In fact, I just watched a brilliant, I recommend this to literally anyone, a brilliant documentary on Arnold Schwarzenegger, right?
Ah,
And yeah, the
is
freaking
it on
Terminator,
Netflix or something? Is it
yeah,
streaming?
yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's got like 3 episodes, or it's like 3 hours long, all start to finish. First of all, brilliant mentality. Like you can just learn so much from his mentality. But he talks about that people would call him self-made, and he's like, no, I'm not. I had this person help me, this person help me. Just gives full, and he really breaks it down in a very intelligent way. But it's very true. So even these, big, billionaire type people, Mark Cuban's another one here in the States that's talked about that a lot. There's all these people along the way that help you
Yeah.
and that teach you and get you. And so there's no such thing. We need other people. That's just even the most introverted person needs other people to at least some extent.
100%. And the most extroverted person,
Oh yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but sometimes they forget as well.
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely.
Play. Let's talk
And
about
this is
play at work, right? How?
right. Oh God. Yeah, I'm all for having fun at work. I am. Just from start to finish. First of all, when you're neurodiverse, you actually need play more than even other people because it gets your brain functioning right. So doing grounding exercises, stemming, these types of things to just get that energy out, right? So I have all my toys behind me. I have I have different types of fidgets. I have different stuffed animals that I use for exercises. I have a beaded rhino that's great for different stuff. So I
Uh-huh.
have them for like the practical, get my mind through it, get my energy refocused. But also people forget that how much fun and play bonds people. I have seen people
Yes.
stick with what is essentially the worst job ever just because they have a lot of fun with the other humans. And so
I mean, this is
even
why people are
though,
so willing to work in, the service industry, in restaurants
yes,
and bars and
yes,
stuff. Because
because
I
you
mean,
have fun.
exactly, the
You
wages are
have fun.
horrendous, but
Yeah,
it's
the
so fun.
customers suck. The
Yes.
work itself sucks,
But
But
you
you
have fun.
stay because there's a lot of fun
Yeah.
behind the scenes, right? Um, and it's very true. It's so you need to have fun. And no, it's not the only thing. And yes, you still need to actually be taking care of your people and actually, do all the serious stuff too. But stopping and playing. So I used to do, weekly games, and that was also a good,
Oh my
bonding
God.
experience. Like weekly games and get people, and it would be something ridiculous. Like this week is gonna be movie trivia. We're gonna see what you folks know about movies. And then it would be, one time we played hopscotch that actually got picked by my staff.
Oh
They
my
wanted to
God.
play hopscotch in the office. So we did that. We did a scavenger hunt. Um, and sometimes I would just stop everything. I just walk in the room and say, everybody stop, get off the phone if you're on the phone. We wait for everybody to be done with whatever they were doing. I'd say, it's break time. I'd bring out some snacks. I'd bring out
I thought you were
some
going to say
different
the
drinks.
the floor is lava.
That would have been fun. I never thought about that one. That would have been really fun.
Next time.
But we would just come out and we would just hang out. We'd turn up some music. There might be a little
Yeah.
bit of dancing. There might, some jokes, that kind of thing. And we would just stop in the middle of the day. I could tell they were overly stressed. I could tell it was just a little too tense.
Okay,
And we
so
would stop and
just
just be
pressing
human.
pause on this because I want to emphasize you didn't wait until Friday 5 p.m.
No,
Right? No, but
no.
this is what people think. Oh, right. It's almost the weekend. Now we can turn on the music, have a drink,
Yeah,
relax a
no,
little bit.
no, no, no. Just whenever it's needed.
Mm,
That's when you do that. It's
yeah,
whenever it is needed. You
yeah.
stop and you just have fun. Sometimes, also, this isn't really about play, but stop and let people process. I used to also have a rule of, you can come in my office, shut the door, and for 10 minutes say anything that you want to say without any reprisals, without any, and you can even tell me no feedback, that you just needed to get it out. And then you take a deep breath and out you go and go
Amazing.
back. And it's the same thing. It's a vent, right?
Yes.
It's a vent. It gets it out.
Yeah,
Now
you're
I've
just
said it.
expressing the energy and then it
Yeah,
doesn't say stuck in your body, which is so
exactly.
perfect. Yeah.
Got it out. Some people would stomp around the room while they did it.
Oh my God, I
We've
love this so
explored.
much. I mean, I get clients to do this, but sometimes it's really hard. They're like, is that allowed? Shouldn't I just, sort of think my way out of all? I'm
I
like, well,
had
you
one
can,
client,
but it's a
I had
lot
them
of
get a,
work.
yep, I had one client, I had them put a punching bag in the office because it was a very frustrating industry.
Yeah.
And so the people could go in there, take 5 minutes, put on those gloves, and just wail in the punching bag and then
Yep.
come back out and it was done.
And they're good,
Um,
right? It's
and they're
not
good.
like
And they're
it's,
good. And find fun ways to do things. It doesn't always have to be so serious. Like whenever we would, bring a new trainee at my last W-2 job and I was building out a national recruiting team. Um, every time we got a new trainee, their initiation, like once they were done with training, was that they would come into a room, we would all come in and they would have to conduct 3 interviews. One was serious, and then the other two were goofy things that we had all had happen to us at some point in our careers. And so we would get to act and they would have to try to respond seriously and, like actually handle the
yeah,
situation, and it was so fun and it was goofy, but it also taught them skills.
yeah.
And it also made the point that this person is ready. And it was a fun, goofy way to welcome them in, to the group. And so it was a lot of fun. And
I'm
people
just,
really
do you know what
skated
I'm
into that.
picturing right now? Like interviewing someone who shows up like in a sort of chicken mascot outfit
Yeah.
and just,
Oh yeah, we did.
poker
We
face.
we some of our favorite ones were woman who brings kid to interview, um man who brings mom to interview. That happened.
So
Yeah,
good.
into it. Like into the interview. Grown man brings his mommy. Not kidding.
Wow.
We had somebody with uh what was the other one? Oh yeah, we we had somebody who thought it was fun to start disrobing in the middle of the interview.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, so of
Wow.
course we had the person playing this put on extra layers. They weren't actually
Yes.
being indecent like the actual person was. The actual person got down to their underwear. Yeah,
It's a
so it was
wild
just,
world out there.
yeah, it is. So we would have
Recruitment.
fun with
Seriously.
it. We would have so much fun with it. And sometimes we throw
Yeah.
in some serious ones too. Like one time we had someone who had a PTSD response in the middle of an interview. And so occasionally we would do a little bit more serious ones too. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Man, we had such a good time, and it was bonding. It was also a great sense of welcome because when they were done, everybody clapped, everybody came up and like shook their hand and welcomed them. That's when they got to pick their own office supplies. We had a thing like when you get your desk, you pick your color, the styles, all that. So they got to go through and pick their stuff, and then
Amazing.
everybody did it with them, and it was very much a community feel. So yeah, play is everything. And I
And
encourage people to have toys at their desk, to have, listen to music, whatever it is they need to do. Just have fun.
yeah, because why not,
Your
right?
work should be healing. Like your work
Exactly.
should be part, it should not be something that's toxic in your life. It should be something that's healing
Yeah. And
ultimately.
for so many people, it's draining, which is so,
Yeah,
so sad. And
that's
also on the
very
flip
sad.
side, very expensive as a
Yeah.
society, right? But that's a
Yes,
whole
it
different
is.
topic. I mean, we could go there, but
Whole
I want to
other
go
whole
to
other show.
the next card is boundaries, limits. So let's say you're
Yeah,
like
I'm
an
all for
amazing
them.
employer, right? But you still have to set
Yeah.
boundaries. So how do you do that?
Yes.
How do you put those in place?
Um, you know, okay, so this is gonna sound funny, but this is honestly how I've always worked with human beings, animals. It's all the same. So, I've been a foster mommy to all kinds of different critters, including exotics. I've helped raise, like lions and tigers and that kind
No
of thing.
shit,
Yeah. And
woman. How does that
like, wait,
happen?
hold
Does
on.
someone call
New
you say,
topic.
I have
New
this
topic.
lion that needs taken care of? Have you
Oh
got?
no, so it was through a sanctuary, and you help out.
Wow.
And I even would work with adolescents and adult animals at the sanctuary, not in my house, just to be very clear. And so and ultimately getting something to behave the way you want is as simple as giving out the right energy and just going, nope, in that one instance, but then immediately regrouping. So, for instance,
Mm.
if you correct a wolf, I've done a lot of work with wolves, and I have had them in my house, by the way. Um, yeah, just pack of wolves, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so what you do is you correct them, and sometimes it's and with wolves it has to be a little bit harsh. That's just how they're designed. So
Mhm.
you correct them immediately, let them know, nope, that was the wall. But then they want reassurance, and so you hug them and you pat them, you let them rub on you and reset mark, let them know it's okay, you're still here. Well,
Basically,
obviously
you can still
don't
be
rub
in the
on your
tribe,
employees.
right? Or the pack or
Yeah.
whatever you call it. Yeah.
Yes,
Makes
yeah, you're
sense.
still in the tribe, you're still here, so don't rub on your employees physically. I want to be very clear. Do not
Do
do
not
that.
touch your employees, people.
You do not do that. But the same basic thing needs to happen. You need to let them know up front what the rules are, which I always did. I walked every animal I ever worked with through the rules. This is not yours. This is your, and I had a system for doing that. And so, but then once if they break it, there is a nope. That was the line.
Yeah.
Uh, but you know what? That's okay. Here's what we're going to do to help you make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yes.
It's all right, blah, blah. And then start talking to them about the things that you want from them and the things that, and different things going on so that they understand you're still part of this. You're not pushed away. You're
Exactly right.
not
You're
over here.
keeping the connection, it sounds like. You're
Yes.
staying
Yes.
connected while saying, hey,
Exactly.
no, this behavior isn't acceptable.
Yep.
Let's
That
talk
wasn't
about
the
what
thing.
is. Yeah.
No, thank you to that.
Yeah.
Here's how we're going to fix it. And then also, we're going to talk about how you're still part of the team and just include it. And don't just say, oh, you're still part of the team. Actually, involve them in some discussion about what's going on. I would sometimes even ask people's opinions during a meeting in which I had just had to say, no, thank you to this behavior over here.
Yeah.
Ask them their opinions, talk to them about some projects, ask if they need help with anything, that kind of thing. And then keep going. Also understanding the why something happened. Was it a miscommunication? Did you not know? Is it just a bad day? What
Yes.
happened? So those types of things, but keeping that sense of community is how you do it. But nope, no, thank you. And just
And
that real quick correction of
yeah,
that wasn't it.
I think this
That
is
was not
where
the thing.
most people go wrong in that they are afraid to say that hard, like, no, 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 right? In
Yeah.
the moment. And then it starts to fester and they're like, oh, should I say
Yes.
something? Oh, they're doing it again. It builds up. They become
Yes.
resentful. It becomes a thing. It becomes a thing
Yeah.
in the team. And it's like this
Yep.
pus that just keeps
Yep.
building up
Yep.
and it
And
gets
let me
ugly real quick.
100%. Next thing you
Yeah.
know, you have leprosy. Like it's
Yes.
ridiculous, you know.
And you should have just in the moment said, "Oh no,"
No,
like
no, thank
with
you.
a dog, right? No, you don't get to go on the table or in the bed or
Yeah,
whatever,
nope.
right?
Yeah,
Nope.
nope, nope. And I
And I
and I
still
do a
love
thing.
you. I
Yeah,
still
and
love
I still
you.
love you. I
Yes.
did a thing with a lot of my team members where I would just go by if I saw it like in the moment, right? I would just go by and I'd go, "No, thank you." And they would look at me and smile because they knew what I was talking about.
Mm,
And they, okay. And I just smile at them and then we, maybe I'd say something else to them and then just keep going. And it just made the point of, no, not a big deal, and I would
exactly,
say it
right? This
quietly,
isn't,
so only to
yeah,
them, yeah.
not
And
shaming them in front of the whole team.
although I'm not against public shamings if it's appropriate, I
Tell me
have
more.
very, very publicly fired people and shamed them. Um, so for instance, I was in a situation in which one of my employees was having a particularly bad day and called another one of my employees. They were both Black. That's, I guess, somewhat relevant to the story. Called her a crotchety old N word
Mm-hmm.
in front of everybody. And I went, "Oh, no, sir." In front of everyone, I walked over and said, "What in the world is going on with you? And why did you think that was appropriate?" Shrinks back. I said, "That is not acceptable." I said, "I need both of you to come to my office." Now, when we got into the office, we worked through it. We talked through the
Yes.
whole thing. He did get a write up because that's a great big no no. Actually, it was a final, but he
Yeah.
overcame it. Moved on. Um, but and the only reason it wasn't a termination was because she had said something to him that was also not okay that I had not heard. So they both got in trouble and all this sort of thing. But anyway, but in that case, it was appropriate because the whole team had seen it. It had been done
Yes.
very big, so it needed to be called out
Exactly,
in front
right.
of it
And
so
I
that
love that
everyone
you're
saw
giving
the
this
boundary.
example because you need to set a
Yeah.
standard. And again, I sometimes
Yes.
work with leaders who are like, oh my God, people are talking about other people behind their back, slagging them off. And like,
Oh
you,
yeah.
you
No.
cannot abide
No.
by this, right? You have to
No.
immediately call it out when it
Yeah.
happens because
Right
otherwise
there
you
in front
create
of
this
everybody.
culture. Again,
Yes.
it's going to be a
And the
nightmare.
same thing if somebody treats you wrong at work.
Yeah.
So I was once going into this is the only time something like this ever happened, and I don't know what possessed this person to do this. So I was walking into a meeting, and the owner of the company looks at me and says, "That dress looks really good on your tits."
Jesus Christ.
And I turned around, I mean, without missing a beat, turned around and said, "Is something that somebody with a small dick would say." And I want to say that was not the most professional way to handle that. Okay. I'm not advocating for saying those
Yeah.
exact words.
People listening,
Okay.
maybe go for something like, what the hell is wrong with you? Or
Yes. Yeah. Maybe tweak that.
yes.
Um, but it also made the point, and it was, and he kind of looked at me, and I said, that took him back. Like it kind of struck him back, and I said, "That is not how you address a woman like me, or any woman for that
Yes.
matter." I said, "No, thank you to that." Again, go back to the no, thank you, right? No, thank you.
Nope. Not on
And
the
he
counter,
goes,
right?
and he kind of smiled and nodded and goes, "Point taken."
Yeah.
And that was the end of it. And honestly, that relationship went on from there. It was not sour. That was an unusual circumstance. But the point is, set those boundaries hard.
Yes.
Like, nope, this is the line.
Yeah.
This is it. Don't cross it. You could be over here. You could be over here, but don't
And
don't
I
cross
think a
that
lot of
line.
people, their problem is they think that's not nice.
Oh, yes, it is.
Exactly.
Here's the thing, because you're going to sour in a relationship with someone if you don't give them clear boundaries. This applies for your children, your spouse, whatever it is. These are my personal boundaries or professional, but yeah,
Yep.
whatever the case is. And by communicating those and keeping them firm, you're actually keeping the relationship stronger. This also means that you need to do the same of the same for them. You need to be
Yes.
respectful of their boundaries
Yeah.
and work with them as
Okay. So
well. So it's not just about
flipping
you.
this to the other perspective, to let's say I'm a neurodivergent employee.
Mhm. Yep.
How do I go about protecting my boundaries?
Oh,
Any tips?
so yes. Oh yeah, so many. Number number one, um, help people to understand what it is that you need. So I see a lot of people that will just say, I need this. Okay.
Right.
All right. I don't understand why or what that, I don't understand what exactly you need. I need a little bit more elaboration. So I tell people, say, I need this to look like this, elaborate. Um, and this is the why. And it doesn't need to be because I'm ADHD or
Right.
dyslexic, right? You don't need to say that. But it will help me to. That's the wording I
Right.
like to
So
use.
I
It will
can,
help me to.
yeah,
Yes. My brain works in a way that if it's presented this way, I'm much more effective. So
yeah,
can you please present it this way? That is way better than just saying, hey, I need it this way, or complaining, or something like that.
basically it's
Another
selling in a way.
Yeah, it is kind of selling. It's like, hey, this is what I need. And you
Yeah.
just have to help them understand it. You have to coach the person through it because this is a new experience for them.
Yes.
It may be normal for you, but it's new for them. So just kind of coax them through it. If you have somebody that digs in their heels, right? Because it is going to happen. You'll occasionally get the jerk that's just going to dig in their heels.
Yep.
You just say, the next time they do the undesired behavior, say, no, thank you. Again, here, or just say, no, thank you. Here is my as previously discussed, here is my preferred process or the way I want to be communicated with, whatever it is. Send it to them in writing and say, as soon as we get it this way, I am happy to do this for you. In other words, make them go back and do it the way that you need
Yeah.
to set the pattern.
I love this. This is kind of saying like, okay, I'm sorry.
And it's
You're supposed to submit 5 forms.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like
I only got
one.
one. Go back.
Yeah, this is the thing that I needed. Thank you so much. Or even if it's just, a method of communication. For instance, the person
Sure.
calls you. Let's say the person calls you. Say, and you need things in writing. Say, thank you so very much for your phone call. Just remember, I do need things in writing. Please send that over to me. As soon as that happens, I'm happy to get it done for you.
Exactly. Like,
It just
and
because it
people,
shows I am going to help you.
yeah.
But it's putting up that boundary of,
I love
but
that
it
you're
needs to be done
bringing
this
this up
way.
because I am like, I will never answer the phone unless I think someone has died and someone is giving you a phone call around that, right? Like, so, and I think there are many neurodivergent people who hate phone calls. I will schedule phone calls. I'm
Yeah.
happy to, if I know it's going
Oh
to
yeah,
happen,
that's
I'm
different.
good,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But do not
Yeah. I
call
don't want
me.
spontaneous calls. Yeah, I don't want that.
Exactly, right. So just communicating to people, like even if they do call you, you can actually send them a message. Hey, I saw you called. Can we set a date, right, etc., or
Yeah.
whatever. Or I prefer to do this via
Yeah.
email.
Yeah. Whatever it is. Yeah, just let them know and and it is important to let them know that you are still going to be helping them,
Yes,
that type of thing. That's very important both for HR purposes and your own and the relationship,
yes, I
and
love
just
that
the
you're saying
effective
this.
communication. But put that boundary and make them go back and do it because if you just say next time, it's always going to be next time.
Exactly.
You
Okay,
need
so
to have them
how?
go back.
I think one more question around that: how do you prevent yourself from going into "fuck you" energy and still stay into helpful energy?
That takes a lot of practice because it's like,
Yeah.
dude, I already told you this, like get it together.
Right.
But also remember, there's always a time in your life where someone had to tell you something more than once.
That is fair.
And so
Very
just
fair.
stop and be like, and check yourself a little bit. I have a thing, I hate hypocrisy. So I do so much in my life to avoid ever being a hypocrite, and it's still going to randomly occasionally happen, but for the most part, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so or I'll call myself out on it as it's happening. Be like, okay, I realize
You'll
this,
notice.
but it still
Yeah.
needs to be said. Yeah. Um, but realize about yourself, you've been in their shoes too. Now, if it just keeps happening, then they're either really struggling or they're being a jerk. Give some grace, assume it's the really struggling unless they let you know for sure which direction it is. But then you elicit the help of someone else because
Yes.
obviously the way that you're teaching it to them is not working.
Yeah.
So elicit, or ask them, say, okay, how you say I am failing and I am not communicating this to you in an effective way. What is the best way that I can communicate with you?
Help me help you.
Help me help you. Yeah. But then if that doesn't work, get HR leadership
Yeah.
involved because
Escalate.
sometimes it's just a jerk. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. Next card is boredom. How do you, I mean, you're doing a gazillion things. Do you ever get bored?
Yeah. And then I just do something else.
And how do you help your people not get bored?
Oh, by
What's the
always
tool?
giving them different, I constantly churn up tasks. clients they're working with, that just churn it. And the second I feel their energy shift and I can feel it getting too stagnant, I teach them new skills. That really helps. That type of thing. So just depending on where they're at, what the individual need is, but you have to pay attention to your team's energy.
I love
Yeah.
this. 100%. This is like such a great way to lead, actually pay attention to their energy instead of like taking all the, yeah, it makes, I mean,
Yeah.
it's so obvious when you
Yeah.
say it, but
Yeah,
how
right.
many people do this?
Not
Seriously.
many, let me tell you.
If you're listening
I
to
also,
the podcast, you should hear, you should see Catherine's face.
like, I'm giving like the duh, like, what is wrong with your
Yeah,
face?
like the super
Like, that is the
duh.
face that's happening. It's
Yeah.
so true though. Like, and why do people not know this? Like, that's so obvious to me. And it is hard for me because I have a few very unusual skills that very few other people share. It can be very frustrating because I'm like, why can't you do this? And I'm like, oh, right, because that's just me. Like,
I'm just
that's
I'm
my
just
little
out
unique.
weirding you.
Yeah. I'm just doing more weird stuff than
Yeah.
you. That's not your fault. Okay. Um, but there are, um, but people can teach themselves to do a lot. Just like I've taught myself to remember to be nice. I've become my own nice buddy, my own fuzzy buddy. You have to learn to control different things. And I will put this back on some of the neurodiverse folks out there. Some things are still on you to accommodate and are
Oh,
still
this is
on
interesting
you to
too.
figure out.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
there's when I look on LinkedIn, it is hard because it part of it is to me seems like, oh my God, there's so much complaining, right? And
Yeah.
especially, of course, like when you look at the numbers, like the autistic community, such a high unemployment rate, so much suicide rate, life expectancy, I think down 10
Yeah.
years compared to neurotypical. So yeah, it makes sense that you're mad, but can we be mad instead of kind of helplessly frustrated?
Can
I
we be
think,
productively angry?
yeah,
Like, that's my whole thing. Let's just be productively angry. Let's actually, first of all, don't complain unless you're going to hop in there and help. I don't want to hear it out of you. If somebody's, I don't care what it is, even if I completely agree with what you're saying, I don't want to
yeah,
hear it unless you're out there actually doing something and doing more than just posting. Posting's all well and good. Yay for
yeah.
you. Raise awareness, blah, blah, blah. But what are you actually
What are
doing
you
to
changing?
fix it? Yeah. What are you
Yeah.
changing? If you're not, just shush. That's all I have to say to you. But but seriously though, so if but I see all this frankly nonsense, and I can see why they're saying it. Um, but this idea that the marginalized group, whomever it is,
Yeah.
does not need to participate in the solution and the healing is
Yes.
lunacy.
Yeah.
First of all, how do you expect them to get it right if you're not telling them what it is that you need
Yeah.
and participating in building the solution? That doesn't even make any sense. Now, it is unfair. Okay. It is
Yeah.
unfair that you have to.
Yeah.
That stinks.
Yeah.
But life isn't fair. Nobody ever told you. It's just not how it works.
Yeah.
So, but to be practical, we need to be participating in the solution. So sometimes we got to figure out how to solve it ourselves.
Yeah.
So for instance, with my MCAS, like just touching different things can make me get hives or go into anaphylaxis.
That
I
is
can't
shocking.
expect
Oh my God.
everybody, like
Yeah.
I can't tell everybody like only wear this material, only
Yeah.
use this soap. That is insane. I can't do that. So I have to just accommodate myself and pay attention to different things. And so that's on me to do. Same kind of thing with my bipolar. Ultimately, it's up to me to manage my symptoms,
Yeah.
just how it goes. It is not the responsibility of someone else to control my mania or to accommodate my mania. That
Yeah.
is me. It is not up to somebody else to accommodate my depression. That is me. And if that's going to affect my work, then I need to tell them what it specifically is that I need, how we can still get the work done, all of that. That again, me.
Yeah.
Now, they can also choose to be helpful, and maybe they have some knowledge where they can also be helpful. That's great if that's the case. But ultimately, the burden is not on them for that. And so we need to also remember that we need to self-advocate. And I know that that's not what people have been taught. And so that can feel very unnatural for people. So I want to give a lot of grace there
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people have been specifically taught not to do that.
Yes.
And so it's going to feel so uncomfortable the first like period, like the year or so that
Well,
you do
and
this.
there's one thing I do feel I have to mention here, especially with autism. For some people, it can actually be harmful to disclose, right? So
Yes.
but that's
Oh
a
my
whole
God.
different
Yes.
discussion. So
Oh,
assuming you have
100%.
disclosed,
Yes.
then we're
Yeah.
good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Assuming you have disclosed. And even if you
Yes.
haven't, you can still advocate without disclosing. So
Yeah.
you can still say, I need this in order to blank,
Yes.
right? You could
Yes.
still say that you do not, and I want to be very clear. So thank you for bringing that up. You do not need to disclose in order to self-advocate. Those two things are
Beautiful.
not interchanged.
Yes.
So you can always stand up for yourself. I don't disclose to everybody. I'm in more of a habit about it now because I talk about everything that goes on with me so very openly. But I even still have, and a lot of people don't know this, I still have one neurodiversity that I never bring up
Right.
ever. It
Yeah.
does not come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And that is for safety reasons. I back that decision. I'm not moving from that decision at this time. Maybe at
Yep.
some point in the future I will. But that is my choice.
Yeah.
But I still self-advocate all the time. People just don't know why I'm asking for certain things. It's
Exactly.
just this is what I need in order to
Do
this,
the thing. I
and
love that.
yeah, and fill in the blank. And so I understand how to do that. Because I've had a lot of people go, but you just tell everybody everything. It's easy for you. I'm like, no.
No,
And
no,
also, I don't like
no.
I'm not the like, again, I'm not the warm and fuzzy. I'm not the, oh, here, know everything about me kind of person. That took a lot of practice. And I only learned to do it because I saw that it would actually help in my work and help other humans.
Yeah.
That took a lot of practice. It is not easy. It is not natural. It is very tough, actually, for me, even still to this day. It can be very draining. Um, but yeah, so self-advocate, even if you don't disclose.
Yeah. I love that. And right, another thing you just mentioned, it is could be difficult, especially in the beginning.
Yes,
It's like a skill you're
absolutely.
learning, something you're mastering, etc. And it is extra effort you have to make, which sucks. But
Yeah.
if you then, on top of that, get very angry about the fact that you have to make an extra effort, that is
Yeah.
your own doing. Just
Absolutely.
saying. Okay.
Absolutely. Just as.
Just heaping suffering. Okay. One more question
Yes.
before we wrap it up. Um, and I ask this of everyone: is there a person, maybe in a neurodiversity community, maybe in a completely different community, that you feel deserves way more attention that they're currently getting, way more coverage? And again, you can tell me later, and I can put it in the show notes.
Nope. Nope. I got you. I know I'm trying to narrow it down because I feel that way about several people
Yep.
that they feel should be getting
Yeah,
way
that's
more
the reason
attention than
I'm
what they do.
asking, because there's so many people out
Um,
there who believe
I'm
who
gonna give
deserve a wider
I'm gonna
audience.
give a shout out to two people um that have made astronomical impacts on me, not just as a professional, but as a human. And those two are Seth Butler, who gave me the word curiosity to cling to so very much. She comes from an educational background and now does spoken word on anti-racism and inclusion. Um, so Seth Butler is extraordinary. He will touch you if you pay attention to what he does. So he will impact you. And then the other is Celia Daniels, who does beautiful inclusion work around the LGBTQIA community and gives so much kindness and grace against all odds, honestly. I don't know how any human being can give this much love and kindness to people that are being so ugly and hateful, but has such a beautiful approach to helping others understand. And that is a human that everyone should know about and
Mm.
everyone should be following and everyone should learn from, because even if that's not your cause, that's not your case, the humanity there and the lessons in how to better speak to people and how to better communicate and how kindness can work is extraordinary.
Oh, I love that. I will definitely put them in the show notes as well, so
Thank
everybody
you.
can go and follow them. Thank you so much for this beautifully flexible and very useful and inspiring interview. Thank you,
Thank
Katherine.
you for having me.
So fun.